Hi, I'm Miles and welcome to the second part of my Digitone percussive sound design series. In the first part we had a look at how to create a kick drum, and now we want to look at how to create snare drums on the Digitone. If you haven't checked the first part, I will link it to you somewhere up here and also down in the video description. And it's quite important to watch that because this second part actually is based on the first one, which you will pretty quickly see. I already thought in the future maybe we also look at hi-hats on other percussive sounds. So if you like that, let me know in the comments, and I really appreciate if you sub to the channel, because then you don't miss when there's a new sound design video coming out, and also it really helps me as a small artist. But now let's get into sound designing snare drums. The sound I want to check with you today is this one. So this is the snare, and this is how it sounds in the context of the demo that I have prepared for this. And before we get into the Digitone, let's first have a quick look at what actually is a synthesized snare drum. The good news actually is, with the kick drum that we created, we already created a very good foundation for the snare drum, because actually what a snare drum is, just to get a little bit back, a kick drum is a sine wave combined with a very quick pitch drop. Sine wave forms the body, pitch drop forms the percussive sound, and a snare drum actually now only adds noise to it and is of course pitched a little bit higher. So we have basically the same attack as a percussive sound, and then we have this noise tail, which you can hear in this example quite well. And to get this noise tail, actually the good news is that the Digitone is quite a great synthesizer for that, because FM synthesis in general can get quite noisy, and we will take this now as an advantage to create a snare drum on the Digitone. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Like I said, we are going to start with our kick drum, which we created in the first video. So let me just quickly copy this one over to track number 4, which we will use as the main track. And the first thing that we want to do is to make the sound a little bit snappier. So for that, we are going here into the amp menu and set the attack all the way to 0, because we want the maximum of percussive snap to it. And then we will lower the decay time. For this, I like it somewhere around 18, which should be fine. Then we are going to synth page number 1, and what we are actually doing now is change the algorithm to algorithm number 2. And this is what we are doing to create actually two different noise streams. The first one coming from the carrier C and the operator A, which is then all the way on the X side. And the second one is the operator B. And we will be using A and C for kind of like the punch of the sound, and B will just be generating noise. And then we blend these two sounds together to create our snare drum. For this, we are now going to synth page number 2. And what we want to do here is actually bring the A and B levels from the operators all the way up. So now it sounds like this, not really like a snare drum, but for A, actually, we just want to use it to give the sound a little bit more punch. So we bring basically the sustain all the way down, like this. And then we also shorten the decay to have it, here it is, somewhere around 20 is fine for the sound. B, we can, for this example, just leave as it is. And now we are going back to synth page number 1. And what we are doing here now is to turn up the feedback actually. And this is what creates the noise. So I will now in the mix go all the way to the operator B, which currently sounds like this. And you can hear now as I bring up the feedback, here in this territory it gets really noisy. I like it somewhere around 90, which is quite fine for that, because now we really have this noise. Then what I also like to do is tune the operator B up a little bit. Yeah, I think like this is fine. Really gives us a very nice high noise floor. And then for C actually, what I like to do, C we have here all the way on the X. I like to bring the harmonic waveform here more towards a saw wave. So tuning this one down until we are somewhere here around 7, which I think is fine for the tune. Yeah, that works. Now when we are looking at the mix, you can already hear that we have the punchy side more on the X and the noisy side on the Y. And now we want to blend these two together. And here I'm actually using a great trick where I need to give a big shout out to Oscillator Sync, who covered this in his percussive video. And the idea is actually to use an LFO that very quickly changes from Y now to X, so blends the mix quickly over. So we kind of like have a movement like this, basically. Hard to emulate by hand. Good thing is that we have an LFO that we can use for that. And to do this, actually, we will use oscillator. We will use LFO2, and we set the mix now to 20, which is a good starting point. And now we are going here into the LFO number 2, and the destination now is, of course, the synth mix. We are basically using the same parameters like we did here for the pitch drop. We will set the cycle to 1, so we just have one attack. Then we use the exponential waveform. And what we are now doing is basically dialing the depth down. And you can hear how it starts to sound like a snare. So just remember, we came from this, and now we have this. I like something around 106. Yeah, I think this is fine. And we are really getting now closer to a snare drum. What I then also like to do is to go to filter number 2 and filter out some of the bass frequencies. I like it somewhere around 50, so that we really don't have the snare getting too much in the way of the kick drum or any other bass elements that we have in our track. Now, like on the kick drum video, there are also some more advanced techniques that you can now, of course, do to the sound to further tweak and shape it. The first thing I like to do is to give it a little bit of punch, because maybe you can notice in comparison to the kick drum, the snare is actually quite low in volume. So I want to bring it up a little bit. A good thing to do that is drive, and it also adds a little bit more punch and character to the sound, which you can hear right now. And then also I'm bringing up the volume to the max, so it gets from a volume perspective closer to the kick drum. And then another additional thing which I find really cool is to go here in the second page actually of the synth page 2. And here what we are doing is you can play around a little bit with delaying the operators A and B slightly, because that really helps to, in my ears, to shape the sound more towards like a real snare drum. So this is what the sound sounds right now. And now listen if I just slightly bring up the delay of the operator A. Yeah, you can really play around with that and shape the sound a little bit. I like to have it somewhere around 2. And now, to have a little bit less of the bass frequencies, I will also play around with the filter envelope a little bit. I like to have it somewhere slightly above 20. So here you can really hear it gets a little bassy. And here we are getting a nice snap with nice noise tail. And now, just for comparison, just bringing back the here the A delay. Here it sounds a little bit on the attack like a laser beam, and if you really just a slight delay, for me really helps to shape the sound more in a way that it sounds more naturally like a snare drum. And yeah, I think for this one we are actually nearly done. Some other things, of course, you can do, which I already did now, is to play around with the envelope shape here a little bit. You can, of course, go into the LFOs and here also tweak the depth a little bit. Just see where it sounds best for you. Of course, with the first one, you can do the same. The higher you go here, also it gets a little bit of a laser beamy character. This is why I really like it somewhere down here. And yeah, with that actually, you have a little bit of a snare drum. And of course, most importantly, use the amp ADSR to further tweak the sound, because here, especially the decay time, really helps to either make it kind of like a very short snare, like this, or to have a longer noise tail on the snare drum. I like it. 18 is for me fine. Also sounds great here in the context of the jam. Let's slightly delay the snare. Oh, it doesn't sound good, so we're just going like this. And now you can, of course, further tweak it. Way too much noise. Yeah. I think I really like it best around 18, and it sounds quite good to my ears. And yeah, that's how I make snare drums here on the Elektron Digitone. I'm still refining my technique a little bit here and there. There are still a lot of things also to learn for me. So I don't have the feeling that I'm 100% there yet, but I'm getting there. And it's really a lot of fun to try everything and yeah, fool around with it a little bit. Also, when you're now in the jam scenario, you can of course apply some effects. It's really nice to play around with that. Of course, I did it now by hand, but then you can, in the sequencer, of course, also program it in. But yeah, there are then a lot of ways to further tweak the sounds and make them more interesting in your music. And yeah, that's it for this video. I really hope you liked it. If you did, like I said, a sub to the channel always helps. And I'm happy to create more of these videos. So next up, maybe hi-hats, maybe claps, maybe some other percussive sounds. Let's just see. And of course, I'm happy to hear what you want to see and how you like this series. So let me know down in the comments, and I'm happy to see you in the next one. Stay creative and bye.